Hi everyone, my name is Jan, this is Roman.
Hi, Roman.
Cool. And we are here today to talk about testing of React applications. So Roman, tell us more about
Oh,
testing React apps.
React apps. It's quite easy, but sometimes it is a lot of work for a developer to always test the application.
Right.
And it's quite a hassle, but it's the part of the job.
Okay.
So let me start with something that I call, or not me only, but it was Kent Dots, who calls like testing trophy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to win the trophy,
Right.
you should be part of the like testing the static components, like static testing. So you catch the typos, and if you write code, it'll easily tell you that you have something wrong with that. So you don't have to like rerun all the code all
Right.
over again.
So do you like TypeScript in
Yeah.
this and ESLint, those kind of
Yes,
things? Maybe?
exactly.
Oh, okay.
So that's like small things, but it will help you to develop more complex applications.
Right.
Then there are unit testing. That's like you are trying to test the functionality of the component, just the basic end component, without any interaction with the other components.
Right. Yep.
Then there is the integration test, which you will like verify the component in harmony with the other components. So it's like you have some app, and you can integration test do. You go through all of the components. You will basically render all whole DOM,
Right.
and then you can click like the user does
Right.
on something. It's quite easier to write because usually it's like with some JS framework,
Mm-hmm.
testing framework. But then there are end-to-end, which is much more expensive, meaning for the time, because usually it's like you need to split up browser, and like some robot, like a robot framework, will click through
Mm-hmm.
all the application, and it feels like the user.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if I would like say it, most expensive is the end-to-end tests, because it takes time to. It's like it's more efficient than the user itself, if it's, but still it takes time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of more expensive. Then there are integration tests. It's much less expensive, but still it takes time to run it, because you can have dependencies like from some API somewhere you are communicating
Yeah.
with, and so it's calling the request, and it's
Yeah.
always slower than
I guess it depends on the integration, whether we are testing the integrations of the all components together, maybe, right, and mocking the APIs and the database layer, or whether I'm actually testing the, I don't know, maybe I have Redux actions, getting data from the API, and then just don't caring about the UI.
Yeah.
So probably depends on the whether which parts of the application I'm testing the
yeah,
integration.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
I see. Yeah.
But still, it's sometimes more expensive
Yeah,
than
of course.
the unit test,
Of
because
course.
you are basically testing only the functionality of the component. But sometimes they are called a little bit more dumb, but it's still good to have it, because it can cover, or you can discover a lot of different errors in the application.
Right.
And then there are static that I think must have in this day and age to have it. But still, basically, what's the testing? What's the purpose of the testing? It's like to give you more like confidence to test the. If you are deploying to production, you should be confident that the application works for the end user. So basically, all of these things are good for you, because you are not so worried, and good for the user. So the user then can have everything, so the application works. So
Right.
it's good.
Yeah.
Here I would like to show you just what we are using, or what it's like our workflow. Basically, we are using Jest. That's I think standard, but you can use Mocha or other these like frameworks. Then we are using React testing library. That's basically same as the enzyme, but it's more, I think, more not so complex as the enzyme. Enzymes sometimes feel more they are like behind the release cadence of React, for example. So it's better we are using that because if we want to use like hooks and stuff, this one it's ready for it.
Right. So it's faster integration of the new React features.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. And also we are using Sinon and Chai.js. That's basically only for that we can always switch the Jest because Jest has the stuff like Sinon. It's more it's for like test spice and stubs. So
like
mocking stuff. It just has it
dependencies.
itself. But I know from the past that Jest wasn't around. We used Mocha and we wanted to switch fastly to use Jest, and then we couldn't because we used some dependencies in
Right.
Mocha. And
So it's
you
like
can use-
abstraction layer, so you can switch those frameworks
Yeah.
if you need to.
Exactly.
Right.
And Chai, that's the same thing for assertion. So this syntax will never change, but you can always change the framework behind it
Right.
or the library.
Right.
So we have here like application. It's like dummy application that's just movie list with like button that you can to have it in your wish list. So this will fire up action in Redux and put it to the store, and then it will show in component.
Right. So it's a React application with Redux showing movies list.
Yeah, exactly. So and the movie are coming from some API.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep.
external API. So if I go to the code, we can see that the movie, which is this like wrapper. So there is the image, there is the icon for the wish list, and there is some handler that clicking on the end will spin up some callback, call the callback from the parent component. Okay, so as you can see, this is first exercise for this. So if we have the React testing library, there are some helpers to give you like the rendering, and then having the how to query the attribute or the selector for this component. So basically what we do, we just import the movie component and we do the render. That means that it will render the DOM for the from the React testing library. So then if we render the component, it will provide us with some helpers to query the elements inside the components. So if I look at here, there is a lot of them. You can like get all by, query by. They all mean different things, but basically you have some ability to just select the element what you want to test.
Right. So since we are basically testing the React application, the UI, we probably want to check that some elements are either visible or just in the DOM or something.
Exactly,
like that, right?
exactly.
Oh, okay.
So and there is one magic one which I use a lot. Sometimes it's a debug. That means only that you will see the component rendered. So and then you can decide if I run it, you will see here that there is the rendered component inside the test.
Oh,
So
that's because you call the debug
Yeah,
method
yeah,
or
yeah,
function?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So then you can check if there is something wrong, because sometimes you just write the tests and then you don't know what's wrong, and you
Right.
can see like in the debug that sometimes that this icon should be red,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, so sometimes it's really helpful for these small components. Usually you will get it right, but if you
Yeah.
are in like for the integration test, it's kind of hard to sometimes
I see.
go deep
Yeah.
into the other components. So
Yeah.
So if we want to check just if the title is there, basically we have here some base props that we are using. That means that are coming all the time because they are required, at least what we can see here from the TypeScript definition.
Yeah.
So there is title, ID, and if it's included in wishlist, and then there's also the callback. So if we want to do that, so we call the render, which is just function that we can use, and then we get the helper. So if we do this, we can write the expect, and then query the title by test ID. That means this attribute. That's really helpful to use like this custom data attributes, because if you are using, if you are selecting by class name, because and the class name changes, you have to change all of the tests. I think for the tests, usually you shouldn't be like worried about the implementation. You should worry about if it works. So this will help you to always know that what you are testing. So you should always have this attribute there. So or if you are moving somewhere to a different component, you should have it there. So
I guess you are not testing the appearance or really the visual part of that, but rather structure kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So and it's also helpful for like end-to-end test, because then you know that this will maybe be dependent on that end-to-end test. So you shouldn't change it or do something unless you change it in the end-to-end test.
Meaning, like if I'm removing like an element which apparently has a test ID on it, I might be breaking some tests. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's smart.
So we have it here, and then we can get the matcher. It could be a regex or just string or whatever. So we want the title, so we just copy this and to have text that's from the chai, and we will have it so it's the new movie, and the test should pass if I call it right. So it's there.
It's green.
It's green, yeah. Good for us. If we'll just try it. If I'm not just faking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
good. One red.
It got it.
Yep.
So we can do this for all of the elements here. So basically, just we should always test if it's there or not, and you know, all of this stuff. So this is the first exercise. That's quite easy.
Yeah.
But we want to test also the on-click handler. It's sometimes a little bit tricky because you have to use the synon for that. So you have some spy it's watching the prop, the callback, and how it's called, if it's with some parameters or not, with some arguments or not. So here we know that we should check also for the IDs, if it's the correct from the prop that we are calling the movie.
Right, send into the callback.
Yeah, exactly. So we just using the same here, that we are just providing the on-click, and we are overriding with the synon spy. So, and there is also a little helper from React testing library that's called fire event. It has all of the events from the DOM, so you can like click, submit, you know, I don't know what else, like drag mouse or something like that. These scary events, but you can simulate here.
Right.
So So basically, what we should do is just call the fire event, and we want to click it because it's on click. So we just have it like click, and then we need to select the element. So where we want to click. So again, we will do the by test ID, and we know that this is the movie wish list, and now we are calling the we are clicking on that So and now we need to check if it was called, the callback was called. So expect, and we go through the props where the is the on click, and we have here a little helper chai synon that will help us just write same as the chai, just to have been called, and there if it's just called it will be called, but you can also specify called with, and this is the arguments that are from the props. So in our case it would be 12 here. So
right, ID.
So the ID. So if I run it, hopefully there is the previous test, but that's like this, and it should be green all of it. So again, we should check if it's like it's not 11.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's it was called. So this is how you like check the callbacks and some events. Next up, there are it's more complicated components. That's the movie list. That means this whole list of the movies. So there are quite a few movies rendered, and not only one. So we should just check if it works or not.
So that will be kind of integration test of multiple components together, right? This one was like kind of unit test of one component only, the tile for the image, and then title about the movie, and this one will be integration of more.
It's kind of on the edge of integration and the unit test, because you are still doing tests mainly for this component,
right?
But you are interacting with the other one, so it's integration tests, but I would call integration more complex if there are like the redux action and stuff. So
makes sense.
But it can be called both.
If you are really strict about testing one thing and one thing only, this is kind of integration, but it's still pretty dummy integration.
Because for example, in Enzyme you can use shallow. That means it will just render this small component without going deeper. But React testing library doing always like whole DOM. So you can choose otherwise in this library.
Right.
So, but it's quite good. At least you can test it whole component, and you are more confident that it will works in harmony all the time. So
right.
But still, you are testing like inside these components. So basically, we have here the fetcher that's calling the API, and we want to mock it because we don't want to, in the unit test or integration test, you don't want to spend some time to always call the API. So we will mock it, and then we just there is like two states, loading, and if you get the data, you will render, you will iterate over the data and get the movie list. So basically what we have here, how we can mock it, it's with the sandbox, which is part of the sign-on. So you always can restore the sandbox after each test. So you don't always, you don't have some remaining stuff from the other tests. So you want
old mocks
so
real implementation.
So you won't influence the other tests. So you can just mock it with stub, and you get the component and the default export. So and then it will just return this children to that. So if we want to test it, there are a few things how to do it. So if we have the movie with data, so that's basically what we mocked here. So it's just we are checking that there is only one movie, because there is only one movie, because one object, and if it has the title, like, so we call it and see if there is the title. Also we can override the sin on the stub. So we override it and we want to get to this state, so it's the loading state. We just override the callback that it will have loading true, and it will just give us this component with that. So so we should just check it. It's the same as the other ones. So we will do the expect query all by test ID, and we will check that there is only one of them. So for us, so we just get we are basically using all the time the test ID. There are some different stuff, but it's good practice to use this one, and to have a length one. So it's if it's present, so it's there. So basically this one, yeah, we can save it and rerun it. Hopefully we'll see some results. Yeah, so it's passing, so it's good. So what else we can, I think the most interesting stuff is the handle, because now we have the callback here again, but now we are doing the add again the callback here, but it's not, so we testing like this callback inside this component, this one, and also we are testing this one at wishlist item. So if it fails here, it will fail both of the tests. So like for the unit test for this one and this one for this, that's different. But also there is a good catch if this it can work. This one, it won't fail in the movie because it works, it passes the ID. But you will get if there is different ID here.
Oh, I see
here,
that
so
you are passing a different ID.
So maybe it could be there. It's kind of tricky, and it's always good to have it like covered more stuff than less. So so we are testing this way, and so I think these are pretty much the same as the other ones. But I think the most interesting part is that we can use this framework or this library, the React testing library, also for like the integration test. So it will call the API, it will get the results from the API, and we will run the, if we click on the wish list button, add to the wish list, it will go through the action, through the Redux and to the store and back. So you will test the whole flow for the application.
It sounds nearly like an end-to-end.
Yeah, it's almost like that, but this one it's only for in like it's not in Chrome. It's just rendered DOM. So it's basically you should also have the end-to-end because you are testing it through the browser.
Right, but maybe not all the feature, or maybe not to test all the functionality.
Yeah, only the main functionality usually.
Like a smoke test maybe with the really true end-to-end. Because this one basically stops at the virtual DOM, right? The only part which is missing there is the real rendering in the browser, which on the other hand you may expect that it hopefully will work.
Yeah, but it's still better to
test
have it
a bit at least, or have a smoke test for the most important parts.
I think always to have it at least your business logic, or what is your business, like if you have a shop or a shop, you should test the whole flow. So you are going add to cart, you go to the checkout and the payment gateway,
and maybe multiple browsers, because
and because it's important for your business, so you should have it covered, all of it. But some of the logic that it's not so important, I don't think you need to do with the end-to-end test. This is might help. It could help this stuff. It's like integration test that will do. It's much faster and it gives you the confidence again to it. So basically, what we are doing here, we are testing the whole app. So the whole app is like wrapper of the movie list and the movies all inside there.
Not mocking anything.
Nothing mocked, so only one part is mocked, that's the router, that we are using the memory router instead of the browser router, because you don't have the browser API for that, so you have to have it in memory. That's just and it comes from the React router. So that's a little different,
Uh-huh.
but I think it's not so important as the functionality inside the
Yeah.
road. So.
Yeah.
So basically what we have here, there is a little helper from React testing library again that will provide us with some ability to do the async action, because if you are fetching something, you have to wait for it until it's fetched. So basically this is helper wait for element. So this will wait until it will discover the movie it's there. Some movie is there.
Right.
Then we will get the movie. So we will get the selector, the whole movie.
Right.
And then we can do this. So we are expecting that the wishlist button have this blank heart, because it's not in our wishlist yet.
Yeah.
And then if we fire the click event, then it should turn red, and it should go through all of the actions. So it will call the wishlist action, add to the wishlist, and then it will go through the reducer, which will to save it to your state, and then it will go to the movie list, where it will get retrieved from the state, and then put it to the movie, and that should work. I only want to check if the ID is good for the wishlist button, because it could be that this is the wishlist button. I think it's this one. So we should wait. Oh, we should wait. Yeah.
So we're waiting for the wishlist button to be
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
meaning the image, the movies are probably loaded.
Yeah. So, and now we can try if it's working or not. Yeah, it looks like works, but we'll see if we won't fire this stuff. Should give us.
Yeah. So we haven't clicked on the like, kind of. So it's still black.
It's still black. So and this will call the API, everything, and do the whole thing. So it's pretty nice to have it.
Would it make sense as maybe one more step to actually check that it was somehow stored in the API? I don't know, would it make sense to render another component which is fetching the data and checking that it was there? I don't know, would it make sense?
I think for this one it should be more about the user flow,
right?
Not the implementation logic.
Right.
That should be mainly then covered by the unit tests, maybe in the reducer or the action. And but this one should be more about the user and user flow, and then that it's working properly for the user.
Yeah.
So I think this is basically it. It's quite easy, but sometimes it's hard because you code and then you forgot about the test, and you need to go back and rewrite all the tests. So basically the best thing is always, if you are committing the code, if you are do the commit, write the test for the commit. So you don't have to have a lot of commits and then write the back and back.
So like 20 commits with the implementation and then 10 other commits with test, not like that.
It's kind of painful then.
Right. Have you tried TDD maybe with that or not?
No, not yet for this stuff. But for the components, I usually like to do the visual part first because I want to see it.
Yeah.
But maybe for like the utils, some business logic inside, that would be fine.
Right. Okay. Cool. So maybe to wrap it up, what we've learned today or what we've seen, what you showed us is basically you can use the React testing tools for unit tests, really the most basic ones, integration of multiple components, integration with the APIs. I would nearly consider it end-to-end kind of, just skipping the browser and actually the router, right? So router. But it wasn't just the React testing; it was the stack of sign-in Chai and React testing tools. Did I miss anything?
I don't think.
Right.
It's
cool. Thanks a lot for sharing. Thanks guys for watching us, and see you soon hopefully.
Yeah. See ya.